Hi Lisa, my name is Michael Barton. I'm an IPC juror for the Professional Photographers of America. I'm here to critique your image titled Lunar Landing. The score is 77, unfortunately was not accepted into the general collection at this year's IPC. And I'm here to, give you a critique, maybe offer up some ideas on what held this back and give you some things that you could do to take this up to the next level. I'm also here to talk about some things you got right. So, for starters, storytelling right out of the gate. Really appreciate your title over here, Lunar Landing. Um, it's a site that maybe people have walked by, but didn't necessarily see it this way. So, using a telephoto lens, really bringing in here and tying these elements together, I think is really creative. And kudos on that end. I really appreciate the title. Definitely brings me into the story, and there's no doubt what's going on here. So, well done in that. As far as your crop goes, again, crop is isolating things, so important, and so well done. Also appreciate your depth of field. The fact that the moon is not tack sharp does show depth, and really ties that in. So, well done on that end. Really nice story, creative, and so forth. I will say, too, with a title like that, we hear the title and then we see the image, and it's always interesting. Sometimes we see exactly what we expected, and sometimes we don't. In this case, certainly was not expecting this. So, things that could be improved upon. For starters, presentation. I always try to throw something in on presentation, and feel like this black is working as far as the matting goes. Certainly don't find anything offensive. What is not offensive but a little bit distracting is this stark white key line around here. And when I look at the image, I'm not certain, and I haven't studied it too closely in this regard, but I'm not certain there's any white maybe right in there in the image. However, the only true pure white that I'm seeing anywhere on my screen is right here on this border. So our eyes are going to be drawn to areas of high contrast, and we have a black against white up here. Unfortunately, the area of the most contrast is going to be right here on the edge of your image when I want to be right here, of course. So, keep that in mind. Doing something that's a little bit darker, maybe a mid-tone gray or something like that. You don't want it to be too murky, but just something that is less powerful, or something that's not quite as bold as that white against that black. So, from here, what I'm kind of struggling with, I guess more than a lot of things on this image, because again, there's a lot to enjoy, is I'm seeing a silhouetted bird, and I'm not seeing any detail in the bird, which is totally fine with me. Maybe a few little pieces over here. That works great. Silhouette, fantastic. I think it's completely appropriate. However, when I get into this branch, I'm starting to see little pieces of detail throughout here, and over on this edge where I can tell that maybe some bark has fallen off and whatnot. So it's distracting having that be a little bit uneven. So I'm questioning whether or not this is a silhouette or not a silhouette, close to a silhouette, and so forth and so on. To me, that's a little bit distracting. As far as your exposure goes, I think you've done a nice job with it. What I'm wondering, however, is if there were some brighter areas, as I was talking before about the your border and things like that. And I think that might just be adding some contrast and pushing it up. Having a little bit more brightness coming on here, maybe a little bit more white against the more pure black, I think would help. It's a bold image, but I feel like the exposure, or the way that the contrast has been presented, rather, isn't quite as bold as the image itself. So, it's just some thoughts on there. The last thing is your crop, and I was complimentary about that before, and still am. But as far as finer points go, it feels. And here's where I'm struggling, is that we have all these little branches that have broken off on this limb, and those are fine, but they're a little bit of a distraction. Now, here's kind of the quandary on that is, is nature not good enough, right? But the question is, that those can be taken out, but I think that you might lose some of the story on there, and that's just an opinion. But I'm questioning if you were to crop this out a little bit, if we could see a little bit more of the image or less of the image, kind of bringing it in over here, if that would limit those distractions in there. Because again, that branch or limb, whatever we want to call it, is very important to the story, and so having these in there is of course important. So there's definitely a balance in there, but cropping through and seeing if they can be less of a distraction, I think would make a would have an impact on here. You know, and even possibly having a little bit more sky, just a little bit more sky for balance. So I do feel like this bird is right there in the center of the frame, and the image has a bit of a claustrophobic feeling to it. So, you know, again, there's a lot of subjective elements in there, and it was a good score. So, you know, a lot of these little things may add up. So, you know, again, just opinions, perspectives on there, and, you know, trying to tie those into the 12 elements. So hopefully this has been helpful. Would love to see you down in Nashville in January. ImagingUSA.org, of course, is where you're going to go to find out more information. So hopefully this has been helpful. Take care.